In this video, we're going to go over 10 tips that can help you, particularly if you work as a patrol officer, be more efficient, create more fulfillment as a person, and as a professional who serves the public. My name is Scott Medlin, and I was sworn in law enforcement from 2007 to 2022. And I get it, I've been out for a little bit, but I picked the brains of 3 of my friends who still work on the job, all of them over 15 years, and they contributed to some of these 10 because they know they'll benefit you. The first one is this: you have to take care of yourself first. Bottom line. You have to work on having a positive outlook because, as my friend who I call my team assistant said, better think makes for a better shift. But if you're not working on your mindset and taking care of yourself and feeling healthy and you feel like crap, you could act like crap. We don't want that. But also, there are so many things in the law enforcement career that are out of your control. For example, if someone who has a lengthy criminal record and they just committed a violent offense and yet they get a written promise to appear in court later, that can be frustrating, particularly if the arrest process was difficult or you had to spend hours searching for them. Whatever the case may be, it can be very frustrating. And I'm not saying you can't ever feel frustrated, but you just can't stay there. You have to have an outlook of what can I control? Therefore, it helps my outlook, my perspective, and you're not consumed by negative emotions. Instead, you're thinking, all right, what can I do next? I'll be ready to help the next person, that kind of thing. Better think, better shift. The next thing is make the most out of the career, particularly when you work on patrol. You're doing a job that so many other people will never do, would never sign up for. And it can be very rewarding, particularly when you help out that person stuck on the side of the road, or you arrive at a small business because they got broken into overnight and you're able to tell them, and I will do what I can to find the suspect. And in some cases you do, and that's great. Make the most out of it, because take it from me, I had to leave for family reasons. And I miss patrol. Do I miss the politics? No. Do I miss the bureaucratic steps? No. But when it came to interacting with the public, it's priceless. I miss it a lot. Don't take it for granted. Make the most out of it. You're there. Make the most out of it. Number 3 is seek continuous growth as a person and seek continuous education and training as a professional. It's absolutely paramount. To put it in short but blunt terms, officers who do not continuously train eventually become liabilities. Officers who do not put in the time for the training, even on their own dollar, like I put in thousands of dollars training jujitsu and Krav Maga and other things like that, because I knew there would be times when I had to control people and I couldn't rely on the department training or the academy training. I had to invest in my own training. You don't want to run the risk of being a liability. And you want to do that much better for people when they call 911. This takes continuous training, legal training, defensive tactics, driver's training, crisis response training, all these different trainings. Never stop learning as a professional, never stop growing as a person, and you will be very successful. Number 4 is active listening. Police officers are called to a scene to fix problems, but you know what? You don't always have to interject. You don't always have to get right to the solution immediately. You can let someone vent sometimes. You can just listen to somebody who's in crisis. One of my favorite stories I heard about someone just listening, and it ended up saving a life, was when I heard about retired California Highway Patrol Sergeant Kevin Briggs listening to this man right here, Kevin Berthia, who was on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, had tried to take his own life by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. Fortunately, that cable under his feet there broke his fall, and he held onto the rail. Sergeant Briggs listened to him for over an hour. He just listened. And Kevin Berthia told me that himself when he was on my podcast. He said he just listened. Active listening is huge. Not thinking about what you're going to say next when the person's done talking, not trying to interrupt with your point, not being like, signaling to them that you're over it and you don't want to listen, but emotional labeling. Say, I see that you're upset. I'm here to help. Let's talk about it. Or paraphrasing. So let me get this straight. What you're telling me is that yada, yada, yada. Paraphrase what they told you. Heck, even pauses are effective. Active listening is huge. Number 5, know your area and know everyone in your patrol area. I used to work in a patrol district that I was very unfamiliar with my last several months working full-time in law enforcement. This area had a huge commercial sector, and then it also had big neighborhoods. But I'll never forget watching this one officer in particular who was very familiar with the district. He would go talk to the staff at hotels where we would frequently get called for arguments, domestics, car B&Es. He knew the staff of the hotel, and they kept an eye on things inadvertently just to help him out. And it was great just to watch him in action. Know your people, know the area. The next thing is follow up on cases, talk to the victims, and slow down the investigations. I myself would get impatient at times on certain things, and I would say, oh, no leads. And then I would bring it up to a detective, and the detective would say, well, what about this? What about that? We'll start asking more questions about it. I go, oh, there's more to this than what I initially believed. Slow down. We don't have to be in a hurry to make an arrest. We don't have to be in a hurry to write a ticket. Just make sure you're efficient in your investigations, do follow-ups, slow down. Because if you're new to the job and you're thinking, well, I'm missing all the fun out there, trust me, that crime isn't going anywhere. It'll be there the next day. Work on your cases, be productive, but don't get to a point where you're working on it so long you're intentionally avoiding calls and not helping out your team. That's not good. And if all leads are exhausted, please call the victim back and let them know you did all you could. At this time, we have to close the case. Now, a lieutenant who I know who has worked in the job for over 25 years gave me this next one. And this is a good one. He said, avoid judging people based on other officers' opinions of them. See, there were people in the patrol district where I worked for 9 years that I got along with just fine, but yet they didn't like other officers. However, there were people that didn't like me, but yet they liked other officers. Some personalities mesh better with others, but yeah, at the same time, there are those officers who are not good at communicating with people, even though that is a huge part of the job. But if you're coming up with a judgmental perspective on someone that you haven't even interacted with, trust me on this when I say you might be surprised where if you treat them with respect and, really important, empathy, they could be receptive to you when they haven't been receptive to other people. It's worth considering. It's worth implementing. But you can't let people run all over you. The next thing is a patrol lieutenant wanted me to share this with you is learn from each other. You're a team. If you're good in one area, by gosh, teach other officers how to work that one area, like finding people who are driving while impaired. If you're really good at that, tell the others what you're doing to help them find that many more people who are out there driving while impaired. It might save a life. You never know. My thing was warrants. I really enjoyed serving warrants. And I got pretty good at it. And someone asked me, what do you do? I said, well, here's what I do. You're a team. Learn from each other. And when you screw up on things, talk to each other and say, here's how we can do it better the next time. Number 9 is, particularly if you're a newer officer, the sergeant is not there to make every decision for you. The sergeant is not there to solve your problems. The sergeant is not there to micromanage you. And I hope the sergeant doesn't micromanage you. Yes, there are micromanaging sergeants, but we can talk about that in another video. Here's the deal. You've got to be able to go do enough training and go to enough calls so that you're comfortable with making your own decisions. And there's decisions you make with your heart. There's decisions you make with your head, where if you knew something was wrong, but you thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway, that's not good. But if you had every good intention, you were following policy and law as best you knew how, and you still mess up, yeah, there's consequences, but more times than not, it won't have as much of a dire consequences as you acted out of a negative emotion or you convinced yourself to go ahead and do that wrong thing. I went off on a tangent there. The sergeant is there to answer any big questions you have. And my piece of advice, to which I gave in this video up here about report writing, is ask your senior officers questions. That way you don't bug the sergeant who's already got enough going on as is. And when you don't bug the sergeant, they don't feel the need to constantly monitor you, okay? I hope that makes sense. And then last but not least, when you have tasks as a patrol officer, such as reports, case summaries, prepping for court, say the next day, get it done. Procrastination helps nobody. Like if you get a call at 9 a.m. and your shift ends at 7 p.m., you take the report for that B&E of a car or the fraud report, whatever. Get the report done. And if there's leads, go with it. Obviously, as long as calls are not stacking up, stuff like that. You have to work on your time management. But remember, get those things done as quick as you can so that you're not sending in the reports like most other officers do at the end of shift and you're making the supervisor mad. So I hope these 10 things were helpful. Even if you're a veteran officer, you know there's nothing wrong with reminding ourselves of the basics or reminding yourselves of the basics. I don't work in it anymore. Never stop growing as people. Never stop continuous education and training as a professional. Show up for you. You show up that much better for the public. Take care of yourself, and may God bless.